Welcome to another episode of Full Circle with me, Onyx. And today I want to talk about magic, witchcraft, wizardry, whatever. And this is just a conversation. And these are my views based upon my experience and observations. And it seems like the more I explore other people playing with magic, spirituality, listening to stuff, you know, like content online, YouTube, and whatever, it becomes clearer and clearer and clearer that superstition, religion, low minded thinking has diluted the art of magic. Same with Hollywood, with its sensationalism, wands, broomsticks, and supposed history of Italian witches, supposed history of witch burning in Salem, and things like that. And things get distorted, especially when there was no television, no radio, no like real technology to communicate what happened. So we're thrown back upon ourselves to re envision what magic is. And I think what's being presented to us as magic and mystery school teachings is not exactly what it is. So, my whole life, I've been interested in all this magical stuff, and I've wondered, what is the root of magic? Where does this all begin? Like, where is the true, um, where are the wizards? Where are the witches? Hold on, let me push pause. I would say that magic, once you've maybe learned a style of magic, you have to reinvent it for yourself based upon you, um, in connection with nature, with life, with the earth, with the elements, and then, with the universe, with the stars and planets, with the forces. So, your direct experience, your direct interactions, you relating with everything around you becomes a part of your knowledge, becomes, makes it, re-enlivens the magic, it makes it real and authentic, and you are like co-creating with all that is. So there's so many directions we can be taking this. And I think I'm just going to start with symbols. Because we think, ooh, let's do a ritual, let's have a symbols, and maybe witch's language or wizard's language, wizard formulas, ceremonies. Everyone's like all into this. What's a ceremony, or what's a ritual, or a spell? What's a spell? And I feel like this is all part of uh, the mythology of witchcraft and witches. Um, but there is this lady, she's an alchemist. She says she's an alchemist, and she was like saying the pentagram in a downward position is one of the only symbols that, can be twisted and turned to dark magic and whatever. And the reality is that's superstition. And I've come across a couple people lately who've had bad experiences with channeling, bad experiences with magic and witchcraft and covens or spiritual groups. And so they're not able to bridge enlightenment and magic, and magic as a tool towards personal self realization or expanding your awareness, which we call enlightenment. So people tend to feel safe under the model of right and wrong, good and evil, um, and angels or aliens here to help you, like this. And I would say that's like preschool. And there's going to be a time when you need to stop listening to these so-called authorities, so-called teachers, experts in the craft. And you could sit at the feet of the guru forever, and even get a little bit of assistance. Yet there's going to be a time when you're going to want to. Wouldn't it be nice if you had the power, that your spoken words could do something in your environment, that your hand gestures were meaningful? And the only way to develop that is to develop yourself, understanding you and how you connect with your environment. So, whether you take this into the abstract, mystical, magical place, or you keep it in the mundane, you still have to go through the process. You're born, you can't communicate with your parents and the people around you. You kind of have to adjust. Your eyes have to adjust and learn to see. Your senses have to adjust. And then you start to communicate, and then they go, oh, you're smart, or you're learning. Really, you're intelligent. So, and then pretty soon you become functional. You learn to crawl, you learn to walk, you learn to run. You learn to use your body as an instrument to navigate this world. The magical is learning to use all your senses to manipulate other dimensions, other subtle planes that coexist here. So, one big difference between magic and spirituality / religion is it all seems to be outward focused. I need to get to the fifth dimension, and we assume, like heaven, it's maybe above our head. We assume our crown chakra is up here, and we're the ones who create that construct of up is heaven, up is ascension. We want to progress, move off planet, move out of body. When we think astral projection, we think I need to separate myself from my physical body. And, that may not be true. And that would be for people who are initiated. What is an initiation but an experience that you've gone through that grants you an understanding, a realization? Things aren't what they seem, and it almost gives you an ability. It's like when you can't trust any of your physical senses, you might be forced to go on your inner sense, and your third eye might open up. And through that trial, through that stress, you are initiated into a new level of awareness. And you're like, I can see without my eyes, or I can see in a way, but it's not visual. It's a grasping of knowledge without your five senses. So there may not be a vision of an angel or words in your ears. So it might vary. So I'm basically saying, if you're ever going to learn anything else, you're going to have to empty the cup. which is very Zen, all this knowledge, I can't pour into you if it's full. You're gonna have to throw it away. You're gonna have to assimilate it and then go to the next level. And all these old truths were true then based upon your mind, you know? And so the next level I'm asking you is everything you hear in the human language that you understand is still part of the three-dimensional five-sense reality. Everything that you image, part of the, whether you image it in your mind or whether you image it outwardly, part of the 3D reality. So it's like, don't trust any word. Sounds like an angel, sounds like a guide. They're giving you a name, they're telling you directions. I'm asking you to go beyond that. The first language, or maybe the universal language, is silence. The inner knowing, that true psychic sense, is pure awareness and consciousness. Anything less than pure awareness and consciousness, I would dare say, is a distortion and a step down from that truth, from that source of power. So, in a weird way, everything is a metaphor. Nothing is so literal. So when you make it literal, you're in the full card. It's folly. So I call it now explorations into the abstract. Abstract lets you logically, reasonably know you're taking a detour into the things that aren't so concrete, yet they're there. Like cloud formations, they're fractal, but they're kind of abstract. Or the sky itself is abstract. Where does the sky end? Where does it begin? These boundaries aren't so left, right. They're not so angular. They're not so measurable. Like feelings, they're a bit abstract. So, mysticism is a very abstract experience, and having profound abstract experiences, your closest association might seem divine or prophetic, but it doesn't mean that's what it was. So when you take literally the word, you kind of miss it. You mistaken the hand pointing at the moon for the moon. So let's move on so in a weird way, I have found out the philosophy of magic is necessary. There's a point in your learning where you do have to embrace the philosophy of magic. Not the religion, but the philosophy. And it's it's cons, and once again, philosophy is abstract. Like the way to do life, the art of living, that's philosophy. Religions might be the rules, but how you go about it might be an art. There's a philosophy to it. Or a religion is born out of a philosophy, but then it's a religion. So how do you know when you're caught in religion? Well, there's a defined belief structure, maybe morality of do's and don'ts. Don't add this chemical with that one. Don't mix this paint with that one. This is what art looks like. This is what art is not. This is all kind of morality. you know, you've defined it so much, it's become a thing. It's now an object. And in an abstract universe, something so logical is absurd. Now, the logical, the beautiful is now horrible, and it's now at, so when the abstract looks at pure logic, that looks insane. That looks like chaos. So it's kind of a shift in perspective. And so where are these grimoires? Where are these magical books to feed the hungry, needy people? Well, it looks more like poetry. It looks more like a painting. It looks more abstract. And it's only abstract to you because you're not living. You're not having an experience of the abstract. You're living in the literal. You're living in the logical. You're living in the so-called reasonable of modern man. Your abstractness, so your mind is completely inside out and backwards to someone who is now of the abstract. You look abstract. Imagine a universe where everything is wavy and circular and flowy and spinny and blurry. Now here you are walking in their world, and you got edges and you got definition. You're like different. So an ordinary mind must go through a transmutation. And I have to turn you inside out and backwards and upside down. I have to take you the reverse way of the hangman. As above, so below, as within, so without. You must walk the path of Merlin, who aged backwards from an old man to a babe. So I have to teach people who are taught forward. I have to teach them backwards. And that makes perfect logical sense, because what's happened is you have been turned backwards. You have been turned inside out. If you want to enter the world of the wizard, of magic, of mysticism. So like in Doctor Strange, she talked about needing a reorientation. And that reorientation is of mind, spirit, and body. So that's the philosophy of it. And we didn't even have our breakfast yet, you know? So someone made a comment thinking they knew so much about the five-pointed star. And they were like, the four elements under spirit, And so when inverted, supposedly inverted magic, now the four elements over spirit dominating spirit, the four elements dominating. So it was a control and domination when it's inverted. But in the reality of it, it's not that at all. A circle is the same all around. It's balanced. It's equal. So really, the five-pointed star is a symbol of equality. And there's an actual transformation, the creation and destructive cycle used in Chinese medicine. But it can be used for all sorts of things. When you nail it to the wall and spin it, it is equal. Each point is equal. Did we even have to put earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, or earth, air, fire, metal. Where is spirit? Is it in the center? Is it the circle holding it together? So now it's up to you. And this is what chaos magic is all about. And the axiom of chaos magic is magic just works. So what you believe about it is the placebo. Now, I would say, in all honesty, religion is the belief in superstition and fear, and the birth of fear and the birth of evil. So when you find yourself believing in this is the way and it's so correct, it may actually be correct. Oh, kind of tricky there with the magician and the fool always present. But it may be wrong. It may be just a perspective. It may be a superstition. It also may have elements of fear. Fear, false evidence appearing real. Challenge it. So you have to break down your old paradigm. You have to break down the concept of you based upon the paradigm that you have for yourself. Do symbols by themselves have any power? The answer is no. Does anything exist without you there to witness it? I would have to say no. So then we kind of go into out of this world stuff, or should we say out of your mind, your little box, your comfort zone. And we haven't even done anything really powerful. So a lot of people just stop at saying magic is just psychology because they don't want to go into a world where everything is abstract. What you gonna do, once you've jumped into this other reality where everything you know doesn't make sense anymore. So what most people do is they kind of go slow and they kind of take one step forward, 2 steps back. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. You slowly inch your way there. And I would go with caution, not fear. Go with discernment, not faith. Because that is what magic is about. It's expanding your horizons. It's gaining more knowledge, and that knowledge turns into power. But why did you ever think that knowledge would fit into your box? Especially if it was powerful knowledge. Why would it be in a book written in a language that everyone speaks? So this is pretty deep stuff when you really think about it. So I brought a few toys. I brought this rock. This rock was given to me by a Native American woman, and she said it was an artifact, and I've had it for like 20 years. It could have just been a rock off the ground. Did it now, because it has a story attached to it, does it now have divine special powers? Or is it still just a rock maybe she found in a gutter? I don't know. Needless to say, I've decided this rock is a protective rock. So if I feel like I need protection in my house, I just put the rock by the door and it's all good. Here's a stick I found in the woods. I imagine it's a sorcerer's staff, a powerful wizard staff. And it collapses into the stick for easy carrying purposes. But if I want to make it into a full-length staff, it turns into a full-length staff. The power of imagination, the power of creativity. According to Neville Goddard, that's all we are, is imagination. According to Einstein, imagination was more important than, I think, knowledge, he said. Imagination was more important. So if one of the smartest guys on our planet at one time said imagination was so important, then kids have been playing with magic, imagination, creativity since the dawn of time. Maybe that is something. Maybe that's a special type of faculty. Maybe it's a mind function that we haven't even tapped into yet. Maybe all the rules are imaginary. There's just imaginary lines. Maybe it's limitless. I think when you allow your mind to relax, and if you kind of feel a little woozy, a little high just from this conversation, you're ready. You're starting to enter a magical state of consciousness. It's not hypnosis. It's not a placebo psychological thing. It's not based on belief or faith. But what you're doing is you're dissolving your personal box. You're softening the edges. And you're starting to move into the abstract, where magic is, where magic happens. Can you master softening these boundaries, having an open mind? Well, then you're invoking magic in its purest form. When you soften the edges, things bend. Things can be manipulated much easier. The limits, the hard edges are gone. The effort doesn't take as much effort. You're in a flow state of consciousness. A lot of research is being done with flow state of consciousness and brain state activity. And yet you went there just by loosening up your thoughts, just by loosening up this idea of your limits, like your construct. I've literally talked you into a new mental state. You are having an experience with me. Mesmerum. Mesmerize. Hypnosis. You know? Kind of. But I prefer mind melting. Breaking down the walls. If mind was just objects, we're just softening and melting the walls. As you are now permitted to move into a magical state of consciousness. Suddenly, the impossible is possible because your limits aren't so rigid and defined. They're not spelled out. You don't know anymore. Things that were so much harder to reach are now closer than ever before and more possible. It's kind of folly. It's absurd to think you can solve life, solve the mystery, solve the abstract. It's not to be solved, but it's to be experienced, understood. You can understand something and not fully know it, but you understand it like you get familiar with it. This is why magic is slippery and subtle. It's the artist gets familiar with their way. And that's all they can get familiar with is the way to do the art. But on a sense, the art is done to them and through them and by them and for them, and yet has a life of its own. You're caught in the current of the magical flow. You're in the current of magic. You can learn to swim and master swimming in it, but you're just in the current of magic.